Hi, I'm Jack Draper. Shout out to QualityShot Tennis.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's our first contender profile for Roland Garros 2023, and it is one on the ATP side and the big man himself, Novak Djokovic. We're going to get into it, of course. The draw's out as well, so you can see on screen we've got the road to the final, his route to the final, and potential victory to win his third Roland Garros title. Before we get into it, though, remember that like button. Do subscribe if you are new, and do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Okay, we're going to do a few things today. So if you've watched my contender profiles for previous Grand Slams, you'll generally have an idea of what it's going to be about. I'll break it down quickly now. So we're going to look at Djokovic's road to the final, which we can see on screen, and we'll quickly discuss that. Then we're going to have a look at his previous results at the Grand Slams, at Roland Garros, how he looks since his career has started at Roland Garros at the Slam, and what that might mean in terms of this year. Has there been a pattern, etc.? And on top of that, we will then look at his most recent results on clay, go through that, have a look at his recent form, and also have a look at his percentage, so his overall career percentage of clay court matches won, and in comparison to other surfaces he plays on, and does that have any sort of bearing as well. We'll finish up by talking about his play style and what he brings to the table in terms of his repertoire, which I think most people now will have an idea. If you've been a tennis fan for more than a year, you'll know and have some sort of idea of what Djokovic brings to the table, but more concentrated on what he brings to the table on a clay court and what he might need to do on a clay court to succeed, and what he might need to try and avoid doing. And then ultimately I'll tell you guys where I think he might finish up this Roland Garros and give you guys a prediction, which, is me really talking about it from a informed point of view, but at the end of the day, we have no idea. And you can see on screen the semi-final versus Alcaraz. There's a lot riding on that, you would assume, if they are to meet each other there. So let's get into it. Okay, so his route to the final, he has Kovacevic, which should be a very easy victory in my opinion. Fucsovics, which is a bit tougher, but again should navigate his way through that one pretty easily as well. Davidovich Fokina is actually a pretty tough one if he gets him in the round 3. He should win. Fokina did beat him a year ago, which you can say, well, okay, potentially beats him again. No, I don't think so. Not in a best of 5. He beat him in a Masters 1000 tournament, Davidovich Fokina, similar to what Struff did, beating Tsitsipas this year in Madrid. And I just don't see him being able to beat Djokovic in a best of 5. I also think he may potentially lose earlier on as well. He's got some tough matches of his own. And then Hubert Hurkacz, again, I don't even know if he's going to make the round 4. But I think that's actually an easier match than the Fokina match for me, in my opinion. Rublev in the quarterfinals, which, if it was another type of player, I might say, oh, this is a really tough one, because Rublev has a lot of weapons. He's a powerful, powerful player. I do think his style, though, is tailor-made for Djokovic on any surface, in my opinion. I know Rublev's been playing some really good tennis on the clay, and arguably you could say he plays his best tennis on the clay, actually, after watching him this clay court season. But I do think Djokovic is probably too good to lose to Rublev, and the results in the past tend to lean towards the fact that Djokovic most likely will win, and win quite comfortably. I know he lost once last year in the Bosnia Open in the final. He'd just come back from injury, played that tournament with barely any matches under his belt for a couple of months, and I think he was so fatigued in that final, in my opinion. Semi-final, Alcaraz. Now, that's where it gets really interesting, because Alcaraz, Djokovic, the two favourites, they're in the same half. Up until then, in my opinion, he's actually got, and overall, he's probably got the easiest draw out of the top players, and that no one knows why. It's just a coincidence. It's luck. It's probability. But he won't be complaining, I don't think, with the draw. It's still not amazingly easy in the sense that, he still needs to play some really tough players, as long as they win their matches, of course. But on paper, with all the seeds making making or getting through as they should do, it's probably the easiest of the lot. So Alcaraz semi-final, final Medvedev, who has been playing some really good clay court tennis as well, won Rome, so he could potentially be dangerous. And I'm not sure how Djokovic would like that final, mainly because he tends to get into really long matches with Medvedev. Okay, let's then look at his results at Roland Garros. You can see here Australian Open, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, US Open. We won't touch upon the other slams. We'll talk about Roland Garros solely. So you can see here last year made the quarterfinals of Roland Garros, lost to Rafael Nadal in a pretty entertaining match, and Nadal played some really good tennis, I have to say, in the end as well. I think he was expecting Nadal to maybe not be as mobile as he was, given he had the foot issues, but he really did inject himself, didn't he? He injected himself with all of those painkillers, and he just went for it. But we'll see. We'll see. I do think, though, 2021, he won, of course, the tournament, beating Nadal in the semi-finals. And there is a common factor, and that's Nadal, in the sense that there is no Nadal this year. So that's a massive plus for Djokovic. And you can argue that any other player against Djokovic at Roland Garros is an underdog. And I think that is true, for sure. They are an underdog. You could say Rune might be, could Rune beat him? He's never lost to Djokovic. They've only played twice. Well, in a best of 5, though, it's a different type of animal. Rune will take confidence going into that. If they were to play each other, that would have to be in the final, by the way, because Rune is in Medvedev's quarter, or half, sorry, even. But we'll see. We'll see. So you can see that 2022 quarterfinals, 2021 winner, 2020 as a runner-up. Again, a tough one for him, losing to Nadal in 2020, and that was when it was in September, and it was a lot colder, and people thought, he was playing really well, by the way, up until that point, and people were thinking that he might be able to pull it off and beat Nadal in a final of Roland Garros. Couldn't quite do it. 2019 semi-finals, 2018 quarterfinals, 2017 quarterfinals, 2016 he won it in that incredible year that he had. 2015 runner-up, 2014 runner-up, 2013 semi-final, 2012 runner-up, 2011 semi-final, 2010 quarterfinal. So that's incredible. I mean, so from 2010 until now, he's made at least the quarterfinals. He's made 4 quarterfinals, 3 semi-finals, 4 finals, and he's won it twice. That is unbelievable. I mean, that is incredibly consistent. That is so good. And actually, I'm just looking at all the other tournaments. Now, Wimbledon, he's got the best results, you could say, and Australian Open, of course, as well. But if you're talking about consistency of depth in the tournament, so as in where's he gone the deepest consistently, actually you could argue it's Roland Garros, because US Open, 2 4th round finishes 2019, 2020, 2018, 2017, 2nd and 4th round finishes in the Australian Open. Then you've got Wimbledon, 3rd round 2016, I guess. Apart from that, though, it's pretty damn good. But Roland Garros is up there. It is. So from 2010 onwards, he is guaranteed at least a quarterfinal, which is incredible. Absolutely incredible. The level of consistency is just through the roof. Before that, he lost the 3rd round in 2009. 2008 semi-final, 2007 semi-final, 2006 quarterfinals, 2005 second. I mean, only 2 results less than a quarterfinal. That is unparalleled, because all the other tournaments he's got 3 or more that are 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th rounds. Only at Roland Garros he's got 2. I mean, if Nadal wasn't playing in this era, he would have won, 4 at least. Well, sorry, 6 at least even. I mean, he's a very good clay courter, and a very good Roland Garros contender, I think, is what we need to say, because that's what we're really focusing on today. And it's a specific type of tournament. The clay plays in a specific way, more similar to Rome, very slow, not the same as Madrid, which is high altitude, not the same as Monte Carlo either. Okay, let's move on then. So in terms of his matches recently, he's played some really good, really good opponents. The losses have been interesting. Musetti in Monte Carlo, you can see on screen there, 4-6, 7-5, 6-4. Musetti plays some really good tennis. The crowd are really behind him as well. They were very much supporting the Italian. Dusan Lajovic is a good friend. Lost to him in Banja Luka. Beat him 6-4, 7-6. Djokovic squandered a tiebreak lead in that second set. And then also lost to Holger Rune. So three defeats in 3 tournaments. No tournament wins in this clay court swing so far. Losing to Holger Rune 6-2, 4-6, 6-2. Rune went on to make the final, of course, and lost to Daniel Medvedev. I have to say, it hasn't been the most ideal preparation for Djokovic. Normally, he would have won maybe Rome. He's won Rome so many times. He's so consistent there. And at least he would have gone deeper, you'd imagine, in one of the other tournaments. Maybe he would have won Banja Luka, for example. It hasn't been the case. And not only has he not won a tournament, he hasn't made a final or even a semi-final on the clay. Now, that is not ideal preparation going into Roland Garros. But the big positive for him is he's extremely experienced. And as we saw from those results at Roland Garros in prior years, he has had incredible results, incredibly consistent results at the Grand Slam. He knows how Roland Garros is in terms of the atmosphere, how the courts play. He's extremely prepared for that. His muscle memory will kick in, no doubt, and it gives him a massive advantage in that sense. So, yes, not ideal preparation, but I don't think it's the be-all and end-all for him at Roland Garros. Then if we look at his overall stats on surfaces, you can see that 84% win percentage. If you round it up, even 83.5% is the actual figure. Incredible figures. And you can see hardcore 84.8%, grass 85.8%, which is incredible. Clay at 79.9%, so basically 80%. Carpets at the lowest at 69.2%, but only 13 matches there, and they don't have carpet tournaments anymore. So clay is his worst surface out of hardcourt, clay, and grass. I mean, that's not a real surprise, but at the end of the day, we have to take it with a pinch of salt because his clay court percentage is almost 80%, which is still unbelievably good. He is a very good clay courter. He's just a phenomenal hardcourt and grass court player, I think, is what this really shows us, in all honesty. And then let's finish up on talking about his style of play and how that potentially could be an advantage or disadvantage for him at Roland Garros. Well, there's a few things that I've noticed in the clay court swing and also in the past as well. If you want a more detailed breakdown of his game generally, by the way, I'll put a link at the end of this video where you can have a watch of some video footage that I took of him at the Laver Cup last year playing against Francis Tiafoe. And there's match clips with me analyzing exactly what he was doing and what he brings to the table from a more technical standpoint. Do check that out if you want a more in-depth view of his game and you're interested in that. But talking about him on the clay and a more brief explanation of what he might bring to the table on this slow clay court and how he might perform, his serve is going to be very key. And yes, clay, especially slow clay courts, are definitely very good for returners in general because the serve isn't quite as potent as it is on other surfaces. But for Djokovic, it's still very important. If you want to win the tournament, you need to be serving well. And not only serving well, but I think he needs to hit big behind his serve as well. His +1 shot needs to be monster. And for the most part, it is. It is monster. I do think it majority of the time needs to be a forehand. I think if he hits too many backhands, I just don't see his backhand being extremely aggressive early doors. He tends to really get a feel for it in rallies and then try and finish it off down the line with the backhand. That the backhand is incredibly consistent, incredibly effective, but on clay, the forehand is really the side that does the major damage for me. And it needs to be a forehand where he's hitting through the court, he's playing aggressive tennis, he is trying to hit with a lot of topspin, a lot of depth, and trying to hit through the court. And if he does, he is able to drag his opponents around, use angles beautifully as well on that forehand side, I found. And then he's able to also then execute the drop shot as well. The drop shot is something that always needs tweaking every year, I feel, during the clay court swing. Hopefully he's got to a stage where he's super confident and his shot selection will be good on that shot, because if it is, it's going to be extremely tough, in my opinion, for other players to combat it, because he will push you back, he will drag you out with the serve, with the forehand, and then it'll open up open court. And the biggest issue that a lot of other players will have is if he isn't able to finish off the point early on and you're pretty good defensively, that doesn't matter, because even if you flip the script and you somehow manage to get him on the back foot, we know how good Djokovic is defensively. Now, on clay, and we saw maybe against some other players as well, his physicality isn't maybe quite what it used to be, but his attacking ability, though, is also better. And I feel like it levels out, at least levels out. Potentially, you could argue that he's actually a better player now than he was when he was at his defensive best or athletic best. There's definitely an argument to be had there. On clay, I'm not sure. On other surfaces, I think you could argue. I think there's a really strong argument to be had that he's better. But on clay, I think maybe his defensive capabilities are a lot more valuable than maybe that extra additional attacking options he has. But that's where he's at in his career. So he can't afford to drag points out and grind from the back of the court for long periods of time. It's just not really something that he's able to do. It's not something that is logical to do either. And we saw against Holger Rune in Rome that he struggled with those really long rallies, in all honesty. So yes, he'll be able to pace himself really well over 5 sets, and he has the stamina, he has the endurance, and that gives him a massive advantage. But he also needs to be able to be smart about how he plays. And coming to the net as well on clay might sound like a crazy option, but he has improved his net game so much. And especially if he hits good kick serves out wide, doesn't necessarily need to serve and volley, but his backhand is solid enough, his forehand solid enough to approach the net, come to the net, and he covers it well enough nowadays as well. And he's athletic enough to be able to give himself a few shorter points in that aspect as well. The drop shots there, as I mentioned. And I do think the one thing that's going to be quite important is also his return to the kick serve. In the past, we saw him last year struggle with the kick serve at times. Now, to the backhand, that is. He hasn't looked as bad this year, in all honesty, but it still hasn't been super convincing. I'm interested to see how that gets on, and especially against someone like Alcaraz in the semi-finals, who has a very good kick serve. How does he handle that is the real question for me, because he will hit a lot of kick serves to Djokovic's backhand, and the question is, can Djokovic soak it up and get to neutral quickly? He is the best returner, in my opinion, to ever grace a tennis court. On clay, Nadal's the best returner ever, but Djokovic is second, I would say, still. And he is very, very good for the most part. This clay court swing, he hasn't been as good returning-wise as I would have expected. But I think he's had some time off to rest, to go to Roland Garros, to train, to acclimatize himself. And I think he'll have a good tournament. I don't think he's going to go out early. My prediction is he'll make the semi-finals. I predicted he would lose to Alcaraz in my draw preview, but I think he goes... It doesn't matter what the results are before that. I think he goes into that the favourite, no matter what's happened during the tournament. And I would actually be surprised if he doesn't take at least 1 set, if not 2 sets, if not win against Alcaraz. And that is a tough one to call. But I went for Alcaraz, went a bit more left field. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think of Djokovic's chances at Roland Garros? Will he win a 3rd title? Do you think he'll be able to beat, say, an Alcaraz in a semi-final and actually get to that stage, first of all? And how do you think he's looked so far in the clay court swing as well? Are you convinced? Djokovic fans, what chances do you give your man? Let me know. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. We'll see you on the next video.